Expo awaits you.
See you right here in Busan.
See you right here in Busan. This campaign is brought to you by befm, 부산영어방송.
Are you a small business owner with innovative ideas or technology? We're here to help your business grow. The Korea Broadcasting Advertising Corporation, KOBACO, is providing financial assistance of up to 9 million won for local small business owners to produce and broadcast on-air advertisements. Applications are open from June 19th until July the 4th at 4 p.m. Visit the KOBACO website for details. We ask for participation and interest from small business owners.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
You may have gotten maybe a year, even 2 years younger at the stroke of midnight. Starting today, South Korea is using the international age system whereby you're basically zero when you're born, and then you age on your birthday. The Korean age system has caused a bit of confusion as there were different age systems for official capacity and also for social usage. And of course, it's going to take some time for everyone to get used to saying their international age instead of the so-called Korean age. And there are areas where the system actually won't apply. But at least for conventional purposes, yes. We're maybe a little younger than we were yesterday. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Wednesday, June 28th on befm, 부산영어방송. Good morning, everybody. Did you hear that extra pep in my voice? Yes, it's all because I may be a little younger today. I actually embrace my age. I love my age. But in South Korea, the whole how old are you? It's very much a loaded question, don't you think, with multiple answers depending on whether, you're using the Korean system, the international system, the year age system, and even really complicated if you have one of those. This one, it took me a long time to understand the 빠른 birthdays if you're born in January or February. So things are getting just a little bit simpler starting today as the international age system officially goes into effect. So this was a major policy drive of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration to integrate the age system or systems into one. The government claims that the complicated age system in Korea can cause a lot of administrative and social confusion and even conflict. So, unless otherwise specified, starting today, the age stipulated on bills, contracts, and public documents will be the international age. Well, I'm already used to this because I never converted to the Korean age because I refused to age a year or two. I was just like, not having it. But anyhow, the government expects that, these previous conflicts, many of them surrounding the age of pension and other age-related benefits should be resolved as a result. But there are still different age systems in some administrative and legal matters, which we will address throughout our program today. But for now, let's talk about age and aging. And so, yes, I am giving you permission to get up on that soapbox and to preach today. Text topic. What is one thing, or maybe things, you want to tell younger people to do while they're young? So today I give you permission to be, kind of how can I say this nicely? An older, wiser being in a not so nice way, maybe even a 꼰대. But anyway, what do you want to tell younger people to do while they're young? 오늘은 우리 모두 한 살씩 어려진 것을 기념해서 나보다 어린 사람들에게 젊었을 때 이거는 꼭 해야 돼라고 조언을 해주고 싶은 일들을 알려주세요. I'll go first. Travel. Travel while you're young and presumably single and you don't have family. Yes, travel as much as you can. You can let me know through our BFM live stream live chat on YouTube, pound 9050 for 101 or for free on our Kakao Talk board. Let's look ahead to our morning together. We have a very busy morning. First up, we have Leon with hashtag fact check. We also have, let's see, what else do we have? We have, yes, Michael with Talkity Talk. In terms of our special interview, we actually have two scheduled for today. First up, we're going to talk about the Wagner group Mutiny. This is such a huge story. We're going to cover that. Also, we're going to unpack the whole TikTok versus the U.S. state of Montana, because there's a ban, but TikTok has sued the state of Montana. That's in the United States. Let's find out about that. I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:05, and these are today's headlines. Japan to put South Korea back on preferential trade partner list. Japan announced a decision yesterday to reinstate South Korea on its whitelist of trusted trading partners about 4 years after the removal in a move to improve the bilateral economic relationship, Seoul's industry ministry said. Legal age for buying liquor or tobacco to stay the same. The legal age for buying liquor or cigarettes will remain the same as before, even after the country's official age counting system switches this week to the international standard based on birth dates, the family ministry said yesterday. Minimum wage talks fall through on labor circle's absence. The talks on next year's minimum wage level fell through yesterday as the labor circle decided not to join the negotiations in protest over what it calls the oppression of laborers. Instant noodle and snack prices to tumble. Korean food makers Nongshim and Samyang Foods are lowering prices on instant noodle and snack products from July in a landmark bow to the government's pressure to contain living costs amid inflation. IAEA to issue final report on Fukushima water release on July 4th. A local newspaper predicted yesterday that the report's release will coincide with the meeting between Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi at the Prime Minister's residence in Tokyo. These are today's headlines. Here's our first song for today. This is Coffee by BTS.
여전히 입가에 그대이 달콤해 Baby, baby tonight Yeah,
Girl, 난 데뷔했어 이말 한마디면 되겠지 얼마나 성공할지 세상이랑 내겠어 내게만 보여주던 내 반달 눈웃음 요즘 다시 찍고 다니는 팬들이 궁금해져 그리고 잘난 맛이 마키아토 알잖아 너 때문에 습관이 된 아메리카노 사귈 땐 이게 무슨 맛인가 싶었었는데 차갑고 뒷맛은 씁쓸한 게 네가 없으니까 지금 조금 이해가리 girl 이렇게 다들 익숙해져가는 거라면 후회만 해 불장난을 다시 선택하겠어 나는 우리의 약속하던 약속들 수많던 잘못들과 또 다른 잘못한 너의 말 못할 잘 잘못들 맛볼수록 쓰기만 했던 추억이 담긴 잔 왜 들이키게 되는지 알 것 같지만 다 이렇게 사는 거란 말이 왜 이리 슬프지 나 오오오
Baby, baby 그대는 카라멜 마키아토 여전히 내 입가엔 그대이 달콤해 Baby, baby tonight Yeah, yeah, yeah Baby, baby baby tonight 잘 자요 오늘 밤 괜히 이 두 사이 어색한 기름만 흐르던 첫 문자와 초통화 기대하던 첫 만남 근데 남의 손톱만 물어뜯었을까 긴장했어였을까 시간이 흐르고 자연스레 우리 두 사이 연인 아닌 매니아 그런 말들로 매일 서로를 확인하고 확인했지만 새긴 우리의 첫 만남은 카라멜 마키아토처럼 달콤했지 어디든 같이 가고 싶던 마음도 시간이 지나면서 마치 에스프레소처럼 내려놓게 되었어 괜시리 속 아프네 우린 참 좋았는데 이별은 쓰리쓴 아메리카노 아직도 추억은 여전히 그 카페로 가고 있어
Baby, baby, 그대는 카라멜 마키아토 여전히 내 입가엔 그대의 달콤해 Baby, baby, tonight Yeah, yeah, yeah Baby, baby, 그대는 카페라떼 향보다 포근했던 그 느낌 기억하고 있나요 Baby, baby, tonight One, two, three, four 그대 매일 하루 종일 네 향기 속에 취하던 시절과 서로 먼 훗날 기약하며 이별을 택했던 기억 이나 너같이 좋아했던 민트향 커피를 먹다 보니 너가 생각나면 rewind 시간이 많이 지난 요즘 가끔 네가 보고픈 건 왜일까 Baby, baby, 그대는 카라멜 마키아토 여전히 내 입가엔 그대의 달콤해 Baby, 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 그대는 카페라떼 향보다 포근했던 그 느낌 기억하고 있나요 Baby, 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 baby
It is time for our Busan Updates. We have our newscaster and writer, Annie. She's in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is it already hump day?
It is. It doesn't feel like it.
Yes, but it definitely is. I had to do
Yeah.
a little calculating. Yes. But before we get into our local updates, I want to know from you. I know you are relatively young, but even so, what would you tell younger people than you? Like, oh, you should do this when you're young.
Right. So, for those who don't know, I am running out of days in my 20s, but I'm still here. And I was thinking about it, and one thing I would say is like, do and find all the hobbies you want. Because I feel like doing hobbies when you get a little bit older is hard. You're always out of time or it feels a little awkward. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to try the taekwondo, go for it. Like, if
do
you
it
want to
now?
try knitting, do it now. Do it while you're young. It's far more fun then.
Oh, so do all your hobbies while you're young. I get it. All right. Let's get into our first issue. This is not good because we have yet another case of murky water that was reported in Dongnae.
Right. So the residents of Allakdong and Myeongjangdong reported seeing murky water come out of their faucets over the weekend. So the city said that about 100 complaints were lodged to the local government, and this is likely in relation to the local water authorities doing construction to change the water valves at the facility's management center. The authorities shut off the water to some 5,000 households for construction, but then in the process of reopening the water lines, the change in the water flow speed likely led to the murky water. So the authorities said that this could happen and that they gave prior notice, and so they cleaned out the pipes in the area and resolved the problem on the same day. However, after the geosmin odor incident from the Hwamyeong Intake Center, people say that they are growing concerned about the state of the water in Busan and ask the city to take extra care into this public health matter.
Right, because, whether you get the notice or not, when you see, murky water, it makes you nervous. All right, next up, Busan City as well as districts and county gave out disaster relief stipends during COVID-19, but a lot of the money actually came back to the local governments unspent. Can you explain?
Right. So according to Busan City, the 16 districts and counties gave out 536.4 billion won in disaster relief stipends from 2020 up until this year. But 17.5 billion won actually came back to the local governments unspent. And apparently there was a pattern in how the money was given out and how much the money came back unspent.
Okay.
So for the 6 local governments that gave out the money via cash, account transfers, only 2.2% of the money came back to the government unspent. But it seems that people forgot about or didn't know how to use these stipends when they were given out in prepaid card forms. With 2 districts that had a mix of prepaid card and cash, 4% came back to the government, and then 7 districts that only offered prepaid cards, 5.4% of the funds were not spent.
Oh, I see. So there was a bit of confusion maybe, and people probably forgot. But I hear that age may have also played a role in this.
That's right. So districts in the original city center also had a higher rate of unspent disaster relief. The original city center does have an older demographic, which explains why some people didn't apply or didn't know how or where to get the money. And this points to a need for a more systemic way to distribute such funds.
Right. So I hope they look into that. So, if you qualify, you get the stipends, and you're fully able to use that money or funds. All right, next up, medical access. This is a key infrastructure for any residential area. And it turns out that the people of Myeongji have lived without access to a general hospital for nearly 15 years.
Right. So the Busan Jinhae Free Economic Zone Authority announced that no domestic medical center has expressed its intent to buy the 64,000 square meter of land in the Myeongji International City that was set aside as a hospital site. Back in 2008, the site was designated as a foreign investment site in line with the International City designation. However, with the government banning foreign capital for hospitals in 2018, the authorities actually lifted this restriction over the site. However, no domestic hospital has expressed intention of moving into this site.
And why so?
Right. Well, the population. So hospitals say that they need at least 200,000 people in a given area to guarantee profit for a general hospital.
Sure.
But the entire population of the Myeongji International City is 80,000. So they'll need phase 2 of the city to be completed to reach that 200,000 threshold, which is set to be completed in 5 years. But then this leaves the residents of the area without a general hospital, which they have been living without for the last 15 years. The Busan Jinhae Free Economic Zone Authority said that they do see the need for a prompt construction of a hospital in the area and are looking into specialized hospitals or even medical research centers to fill that gap.
I see. Well, hopefully we'll see one up and running soon. Unfortunately, there's been an uptick in violent outbursts from civilians at government institutions. Busan City is taking measures to protect its public servants.
Right. So according to the city survey, there were 3,716 cases of violent acts by civilians that had come into local community centers, some district offices, and the city hall. So back in March, a drunk man actually threw his cell phone at the head of a government official on duty over in Seoggu district. And the city council passed the ordinance on protection and support for public servants in charge of civic complaints. And the city therefore formed urgent response teams to delegate the tasks of recording, intervention, and also reporting, and they will also run some drills. So the city will also provide funding for counseling and medical care, as well as legal help should they need it.
Yes, and let's remember, as citizens, of course, we want to get our services taken care of, attended intended to, but let's be cordial. Let's be
Right.
nice
We're all
out there.
human.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Annie. And for now, I'm going to get into our text topic. Here it is, listeners. Are you ready? Today is one of those days. It's a rainy hump day. 오늘은 본격 꼰대 open mic time because today we're talking about age, international age. Basically, some of you might be getting a year, or if your birthday is really late, maybe 2 years younger if you convert to the international standard versus the Korean age. So what is one thing that you want to tell younger people out there? Oh, you should do this while you're young. Right. So 오늘은 우리 모두 한 살씩 어려진 것을 기념해서 나보다 어린 분들한테, 사람들한테 젊었을 때 꼭 이거는 꼭 해야 돼. 이거는 꼭 해야 돼. 젊었을 때 하지 않으면 후회할 거야. If you have anything like that, let us know. In the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Annie.
Good morning, everyone, and here's your traffic and weather for this hour. So there is a broken down car in the first lane of the Namhae Expressway that's heading toward Suncheon near the East Changwon interchange, so please drive slowly. Roads are quickly filling up with congestion on Nuno Samsongdaero from Myeongji Underpass to Shino Bridge. Also on Dongso Overpass from Hwangyang interchange to the Old Kaegum Tollgate. And it is also backed up on Gwanmundaero from Bangum Tunnel to Baekyang Tunnel. Now, if we switch over to the weather, it is yet another rainy morning with current temperatures averaging 20 degrees Celsius, with afternoon highs looking to reach up to 27 degrees Celsius. Rain will continue to fall throughout the region up until lunchtime when skies will briefly clear, so you can expect 30 to 80 millimeters of rain in the Buryong area. With heavy rain comes the dangers of landslides and flooding, so definitely be sure to take the necessary preventative steps. That's all for now. See you in the second hour.
Check this out. This is Morning Wave Busan.
Everybody, wait a minute.
This is Morning Wave.
Morning Wave.
You are listening to
Morning Wave.
Morning Wave in Busan.
What show is this?
This is Morning Wave in Busan.
Here we go. Morning Wave in Busan.
It's time for News Digest. We have Haley in the studio. Welcome, welcome.
Good morning, good rainy morning.
I know, yes. We're in the midst of our rainy season. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
Had to turn the AC on just for I admit, yesterday for 10 minutes. That was about it, though.
The dehumidifier is just doing 24/7 full-time duty in our
Exactly.
place.
We're in every room, turn that thing on.
Yep.
All right, so what would you tell younger people? If while you're young, you need to do this. Make sure you do this. And,
Oh, my goodness.
And we know Haley is like a 꼰대 at heart, regardless of her age.
Right here.
Right
here. Yep.
She-
I was born 45, just aging upward ever since then.
Yes.
The typical stuff, travel.
Uh-huh.
And then, but the thing is, there are only certain types of travels you can do while you're young.
Yes.
And I use this in air quotes, quote unquote poor when you don't make your own money, go to hostels and use the lodgings with shared bathrooms and the bunk beds.
Backpacking.
Yeah, backpack and because your back doesn't hurt as much right now. It'll only continue to hurt. So yeah, have those fun kind of low key experiences while you have the joints for it.
The joints.
Yeah.
The 관절.
Yeah, the 관절. While your 관절 is still young, have those wild experiences.
Right, go real camping, not glamping, right?
I mean, yeah. I can't. I haven't done that myself, but sure.
Sure,
If you like
others.
nature, do it.
All right. Well, we are fast approaching July, and we're getting reports about potential dates for the Fukushima wastewater release.
That's right. So according to Japan's Asahi paper, Prime Minister Kishida Fumio is working on scheduling a meeting with the Secretary General of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, for July 4th. So what that means is during this meeting, the Prime Minister will receive the IAEA's final report on the safety of the treated water from the Fukushima power plant, and this report will then be released to the general public. And that's kind of the final, at least on paper, the final step. And another Japanese outlet reported that the actual release of the wastewater will then be decided by the Prime Minister.
I see. Well, what factors will he consider in terms of the final date for the release?
Right. So there's the physical aspect after they complete construction of the wastewater release system, and also the logistical step, which is the IAEA's examination and the final report. The Japanese government has said that they will release the water this summer, but they have yet to give a specific date for this. However, in terms of the construction, we're kind of seeing that it's already wrapped up. The authorities have raised the excavator that was used to dig the underground tunnel. So the physical aspect is complete. They're currently running the test drive right now. So once that's over, the entire process will be done in terms of construction. And also in terms of the logistics and approval, the IAEA's pre-release inspection begins today, as a matter of fact, but it's unclear when that's going to end. And another point of consideration is, of course, public opinion, including fishermen around the power plant, neighboring countries, and the Pacific Islands. The Japanese government and TEPCO said back in 2015 that they will not take any action without gaining an understanding and consensus from the parties of interest, so especially domestic public opinion will matter for them.
Yes, of course. On a related note, the South Korean Foreign Ministry held a discussion forum to provide information about the safety of this wastewater, but it went in a different direction than many had anticipated.
Right. So we're talking about the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, which operates under the Foreign Ministry. They held a discussion forum on how we should see and perceive the Fukushima wastewater release. So this intent originally was to exclude any political controversy and offer science-based analysis and understanding. However, the comments that came from the experts that were on the panel didn't really go that way. So what I'm talking about is, for one, the president of the Korean Nuclear Society, Baek Won-pil, said that the wastewater that's treated with the ALPS, the ALPS system, is safe to drink. And he said that if you drink 5 to 10 liters of that water, that's equal to the radiation you're exposed to from just one X-ray. So kind of defending the Japanese side, one may perceive it as. And he also added that the rockfish that was very controversial, it was caught around the waters of Fukushima, and it is said to have contained 180 times the permitted levels of cesium. He stated that with that level, it's safe to eat just once. He's saying that we're not eating it constantly, so if it's just a one-time thing, it's fine. So they were referring to just the pure cesium and radiation levels, but of course it doesn't sit well with the general public.
Right.
And others, including a Seoul National University professor, stated that it's actually important to promote the safety of the seafood. And the South Korean government also said that it's not looking into lodging objections or any other methods to the IAEA because that would go against the principle of good faith with international organizations. So basically saying it will not object to Japan's plans to release the wastewater any further.
So that is the government's position. All right. Well, let's continue our discussion of South Korea applying the international age system, which starts today. We talked about the fact that there would be some exceptions to this system, like the drinking age, schools, and whatnot. But insurance, 보험, this is an area where I guess the international age will not apply?
Right. So insurance apparently has its own counting system. And this is convoluted, to say the least. So under the insurance age, and we're going to throw up a graphic for you in just a bit to kind of help you understand, the day you sign your contract with the insurance agent, if that day is under 6 months from your last birthday, then they apply your international age, your 만나이.
Okay.
But if when you sign your contract it has been over 6 months since your last birthday, then they add a year onto your age. We have no idea what that means, so let's throw you an
Okay.
example. So someone is born on March 1st of 1983, so that would make you 40 because it's June, your birthday's passed, and you sign insurance. But if that person signed that contract on January 1st of that year, at which time, let's just say he was only 39 years and 10 months old. But because it's been 6 months since his last birthday, insurance counts him as a 40-year-old. So yeah, you just aged 2 months because of that.
Okay.
But if he would have signed that just a bit earlier, August 31st of last year, when he was 39 years, 5 months and 30 days old, so that was right before his 6-month mark after the last birthday, he would have counted as a 39-year-old under insurance age. And this, by the way, applies to all private insurances, including life insurance, health coverage, etc.
And why is this important?
Right, because insurance fees get more expensive as you age.
Right.
So your monthly copay might be higher just because you signed up a couple months or even just a day later than your semi-halfway birthday mark.
Okay.
So remember, under 6 months after your last birthday, you're counted as your current age. If it's been over 6 months since your last birthday, they round up.
Got it.
And this is the only area that applies this age calculation system. And the Financial Supervisory Service, the FSS, said that they are reviewing potentially changing the system within time if needed. But for now, this is what it is. And by the way, not only this, but if there are any confusions or inconveniences due to the new age system, the FSS has a hotline open, 1332, where you can call, ask questions, and lodge any complaints.
I'm just saying, as a layperson, personal opinion, I wish there was just one system.
Right.
It's so confusing. Still confusing. All right. Lastly, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave his first address since the Wagner Group rebellion or revolt, whatever you want to call it. What did he say?
Right. So this was a very short speech on Monday night. Putin addressed the insurrection, mutiny. We're learning so many new words here.
Yes.
Saying that he will bring the organizers of the revolt to justice. So he stated that the leaders of the Wagner Group's mutiny, although he didn't name names, they just wanted to see, quote, Russia choked in bloody strife. But he did call the regular troops patriots. So he's kind of skirting a thin line there. And he stated that actually the regular troops will be allowed to join the army or go to Belarus to join their leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, or return home. And he also expressed confidence in the Russian military, saying that the armed rebellion would have been suppressed anyway. And as a result of the deal with the Wagner Group, the Russian military is now in the process of transferring some of Wagner's heavy weaponry into its official military.
Yes.
And this follows Yevgeny Prigozhin's first audio message that came earlier on Monday, where he said that he called off the march on Moscow because he wanted to avoid bloodshed. And he stated that this was not a coup or an attempt to overturn power, simply that it was a demonstration of protest. And actually, we just got news that Prigozhin is confirmed to have arrived in Belarus as of just a few hours ago. It has been kind of a mystery where his whereabouts in the past couple of days between Saturday night and today, but his private jet was flying into Minsk on Tuesday.
Oh, he has a private plane.
Yeah.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden, he has also spoken up on this issue because there's this alleged U.S. involvement, as some reports are,
Right, and even President Putin alluded to
Yes.
it as, this was an orchestrated attempt by enemies of Russia. Well,
Yes.
following that speech, U.S. President Joe Biden said that this mutiny was a part of an internal Russian struggle, that the U.S. played no role. And Western leaders have maintained their position to not get involved in this rebellion. However, according to a CNN report, which quoted its intelligence source, it stated that the U.S. intelligence officials had an extremely detailed and accurate picture of Prigozhin's plans to this rebellion. However, this was kept to only a select few number of eyes, including senior British officials, but not with the rest of NATO countries.
Oh.
So according to the report, Prigozhin seems to have decided to launch the plans after the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that all private mercenaries, including Wagner, would be forced to sign contracts with the military and essentially be absorbed by them, which is what wound up happening anyway. So this means that the rebellion didn't come out of nowhere and that there were signs of dissatisfaction and even preparation ahead of time. However, according to the report, even the U.S. intelligence officials, they were surprised by how little resistance the mercenaries faced as they marched onto Moscow.
Indeed, and there were like people taking selfies with them
they
and
were
Prigozhin and
greeting
stuff.
them and shaking
Right.
his hand. So yeah.
So yes, there you have it. That's a news digest for today. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right, let's get to our next song. This is King and Cross by Oscar.
Haste night and June, and she is walking with me from the house of red. I hear a child crying, foxes heading home. Their prayings from their jaws and the forest moons, but it won't share the secret. When the king takes sides, leaving moral mind soldiers take their share. Night seems to sense that now is the time. Deep inside them burns the raging fire of life. Still take back what it owns. Death cannot take hold if I can keep momentum. Fortresses of stone turn into crystal tears, soothed by southern winds. I found my strength now and nobody knows. And we must keep our secret when the king takes sides, leaving moral mind soldiers take their share. Night seems to sense that now is the time. Deep inside them burns the raging fire of life. You'll take back what you own.
It is now 7:36 on this very wet Wednesday morning, and I do want to caution all of you, please slow down if you're driving, even if you're walking anywhere, trying to catch a bus or subway, to definitely take your time today and yes, tie down anything that you need to make sure things stay nice and secure as we get through this rainy season together. For our main theme today, though, we are talking about the details of this new age system here in Korea. So despite the international age implementation, there are still some aspects where the system won't be applied to. And these are aspects where legally it's convenient to apply the same age to people born in 1 year. So this includes the age at which a child enters elementary school, which is 6 years of age, military conscription, the age at which you can buy alcohol or tobacco, and also for public office examinations. Now, this is to avoid administrative hassle and confusion that would come from having everyone turn a year older on different dates. All right, so let's take alcohol sales, for example. In many other countries, you can buy alcohol on the day of your actual, let's say, 18th or 19th, or in California, 21st birthday, which means that people who sell alcohol have to check the date on a person's ID, and they have to check real carefully to make sure it's the correct date. But for the sake of convenience, South Korea will allow the sale of alcohol to everyone born in 2004 for this year, regardless of whether their birthdays have passed or not. So this is called the year age system, the 연나이, which is simply calculated by this year, 2023, minus the year you were born in. Are you confused? I'm still confused. Anyhow, but generally speaking, we're switching to the international age system. All right, it's time for a text topic. What's one thing you want to tell younger people to do while they're young? And today, feel free. I know we have among our listeners, not real 꼰대s, but maybe 꼰대 at heart. So you have permission to stand up on that soapbox and preach today. 오늘은 우리 모두 한 살씩 어려진 것을 기념해서 나보다 어린 사람들에게 젊었을 때는 꼭 이거는 해라 라고 조언을 주고 싶은 일들 알려주세요. So let's look at some of your messages. How about this one? JB님, I would say to younger people, 늦었다고 생각하면 이미 늦었다. 하고 싶은 건 빨리 해보고 즐겁게 살거라. 오, 살거라. Even the la, that's so 꼰대ish, but yes. When you think things are like, it's too late, it might be too late. So while you're young, hurry up. Do what you really want to do. All right, I'll be back with our hot clip. For today's hot clip, we're going to play you an audio recording in which former President Donald Trump appears to acknowledge keeping a classified document after leaving the White House. This has been obtained by multiple U.S. media outlets. CNN is reportedly the first to publish this and to air this. So here are clips from CNN and ABC News.
We have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case against Donald Trump. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he's showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran with people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it. In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will hear one day. The recording was made 2 summers ago, July 2021, at the former president's club in Bedminster, New Jersey. You will clearly hear the former president as he is speaking to several people. According to the special counsel's indictment, they include a writer working on Mark Meadows' memoir, the publisher, and 2 of Trump's staff members. The president was aware he was being recorded. This is the first time it is being played publicly.
He said that I wanted to attack Iran. I said, isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this.
Trump pleaded not guilty earlier this month to a sprawling 37-count indictment alleging that he mishandled classified documents that he kept at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Let's bring in ABC News legal contributor Khan Nowadaye, a former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. Khan, thanks so much for joining us. You've heard the audio. What's your initial reaction?
This is devastating evidence. It was previewed in the indictment that was returned against the former president several weeks ago. And it's devastating. It's his own words. He is recognizing that he has classified information. He is recognizing that he is showing it to people he shouldn't be showing it to. So I would call this the smoking gun of knowledge and intent.
And that was a federal prosecutor giving his legal opinion. But in the recording, if you missed it, he does say, as he's rifling through the papers, this is highly confidential. And that is why some think that this recording may actually be very damning against the former president. We'll see what happens, of course, in this huge case. This was your hot clip for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It's time for a hashtag fact check. We have Leon in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
Hey, so how did you brave the rain? Did I see slippers on you?
Yes, I did. I don't want to get my it's so humid today. I don't want to put any shoes on.
So today it's kind of like either a rain boots day or
just
slipper day.
Slippers.
Yes.
Dry
So
quickly.
please be careful out there. Once again, let's dive into our first fact check. What are we going to talk about? What are we going to check out?
Yes. So in the past 5 to 6 years, we've been seeing a change in our social perception when it comes to human rights, especially with the Me Too movement. People are coming out and voicing their experiences of sexual abuse or harassment at the workplace. So naturally, opinions that sexual abuse should be strongly punished have been gaining strength. But the exact legal concept and the difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault are not really widely known to the general public, but there is actually a clear difference between the two. Earlier this week, Kim Young-min, a political critic on Natube, he claimed that sexual assault is a sex crime, but sexual harassment is not a legal sex crime.
Oh.
So is his claim true? Then let's fact check this for today. Hashtag sexual harassment, not a legal sex crime.
Oh, well, this is a good one. Well, before we dig deeper, we're talking about sexual assault and then sexual harassment. So maybe you can say it in Korean for us so that our listeners are not confused.
Right. So sexual assault is 성추행. And sexual harassment is 성희롱. So what we're fact-checking today first is whether 성희롱, or sexual harassment, is a legal sex crime or not. So I hope that makes it clear for our listeners.
Yes.
Let's first take a look at what the legal definition is for sexual harassment here in Korea. According to the National Human Rights Commission Act, the law defines sexual harassment as an act that causes the other person to feel sexual humiliation or shame through sexual behavior that the other person does not want. Sexual violence or assault is described in the Ministry of Legislation's easy-to-find living law information as a term that includes all physical and mental violence against the will of the other party, such as verbal sexual harassment, obscene messages, and hidden cameras.
So that's interesting because when you define the second one, it says such as verbal sexual harassment also, though. So there is a difference, and it does seem, looking at the language, that they seem to be both punishable by law?
Right. So when it comes to the sexual crimes, a special act on the punishment of sexual violence crimes states that acts such as adultery and rape can be punished. But for sexual harassment, there are no actual punishment regulations.
Oh.
Therefore, it can be seen that in principle, sexual harassment cannot be criminally punished. So what about the laws in the workplace though, right? The Act on Equal Employment for Men and Women and Support for Work-Family Balance requires employers to impose fines of up to 10 million won for sexual harassment in the workplace.
Okay.
But again, this is an administrative disposition. It's not a criminal punishment. Pundits say that the current law seems to focus on sexual violence rather than verbal abuse, adding that in principle, sexual harassment is not subject to criminal punishment, so it cannot be considered a sex crime.
I see.
There are some exceptions though, when a number of people equally recognize a level of sexual harassment taking place in the workplace. The victim can file a civil lawsuit to seek mental damages. But again, this does not mean the sexual harassment itself is being punished by law.
Because once again, that would be a civil lawsuit.
Yes,
You're seeking
civil
damages, but that person would not, for example, be found guilty in a court of law.
Right.
Oh, so that's kind of surprising. What about other countries?
All right, so let's take a look at Japan, which has, a similar legal system to ours.
Yes.
Japan also does not have a law to punish sexual harassment. The Equal Act in Japan states some regulations on the prevention of sexual harassment at work, but its purpose is to prevent sexual harassment from occurring to employers from just the perspective of improving the employment environment. In cases where sexual harassment constitutes defamation or insult, criminal punishment is possible, but there is, again, no such thing as sexual harassment crime.
Interesting.
But let's also take a look at France this time, a country known to be strict about sex crimes.
Yes.
The French criminal law defines sexual harassment as bullying through orders, threats, and coercion to obtain sexual favors. And even if the act is not repeated, even if it was just a one-time thing, it imposes significant pressure. If it imposes significant pressure to obtain sexual favors for oneself, the person can face up to 2 years in jail or a fine of 30,000 euros. And more interesting, you know the act of catcalling, right?
Catcalling, like whistling or
right,
saying
in public.
Yeah.
That's actually apparently that's a punishable crime in France as well. The person can face a fine of up to 90 euros to 750 euros. And it can even face a fine of 15,000 euros if the person was a minor.
Shouldn't be catcalling in the first place, right? And, well, at least in France, I guess, it's illegal. So I guess so. In conclusion, sexual harassment in Korea is not a punishable crime.
You're right.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to our next fact check.
All right, so the second topic today is about 수능, the National College Entrance Exam. The government says that the high-level problems, the killer 문항, that's what they're called, in those exams that are not thoroughly taught in the school curriculum are pushing students to turn more and more to private education. Their argument is that the more difficult the national exams, the higher the spending on private education. So let's fact check this, whether this is true.
Right. So some might say, well, it sounds like a logical, argument. The harder the questions are, the more you spend on, like hagwon or kawe or whatever, right? So, but what does the data say?
Right. So let's just take a look at the mathematics subject, which is commonly known as a subject where students turn to private education the most. So did private education spending on math increase after the math problems in the national exam turned out to be more difficult than expected?
Okay.
The national exam in 2008, the math problems then were deemed very difficult as its average score only came to 150. The following year, the private education cost on math per high school student increased by about 13%. Considering that the average annual growth rate of private education costs on math was about 5%, 13% is quite a jump. Let's take the look at college entrance exam 2 years later in 2011.
Okay.
The highest standard score for math was 153, meaning math was quite hard that year as well. We'd expect private education on math to increase the following year, but private education costs increase only by 0.9% the following year.
Oh, huh. So does that mean that there's no significant relationship or correlation between the level of the difficulty of national exams versus spending on private education?
Right. There seems to be no significant relationship between the two. And while we're on this topic, I think it's worth mentioning the government's new measures to reduce private education costs, which came out just this week. Despite what we just talked about, how, the difficulty of national exam question and private education spending does not seem to be related. The government did announce this week that it will aim to take out the so-called killer questions or killer문항 questions that have, a very low correct rate to make the exams relatively easier for the students, which they believe will ultimately lead to lower spending on private education. But pundits are saying that such measures will hardly have an effect, considering that private education spending has more to do with, Korea's generally high level of enthusiasm when it comes to education, the low birth rates, and also, the issue of improving the quality of public education.
So it does seem that maybe, I don't know, do we need more realistic measures? Is this the only way to approach it? I think that's a question that we're going to have to ask ourselves. It's not something just the government can solve, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for fact-checking these two very interesting ones that affect all of us. And we'll check in with you next week. Thank you, Leon.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, this was Fact Checked. So hashtag Fact Checked. And we have two special interviews planned for hour number 2. So definitely stay tuned. And in terms of the weather, I know that we have entered the rainy season here in Korea. So once again, if you can, make sure you tie everything down to make sure all the facilities are nice and secure, that things don't fly away. And please stay safe out there as you go about another rainy day here in Busan. As for the weather forecast, of course, Annie will give you updates in hour number 2. All right, let's get to our final song for hour number 1. This is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo by Louis Armstrong.
Salakadoola, me checkaboola, bibbidi bobbidi boo. Put them together and what have you got? Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Salakadoola, me checkaboola, bibbidi bobbidi boo. It'll do magic, believe it or not. A bibbidi bobbidi boo. Yes, salakadoola means Manchekaboola brew. But the thingamabob that just job is bibbidi bobbidi boo. Salakadoola, me checkaboola, bibbidi boo. Put them together and what have you got? A bibbidi bobbidi boo. Yes, salakadoola means Manchekaboola blue. But the thingamabob that does the job, bibbidi bobbidi boo. Salakadoola, me checkaboola, bibbidi bobbidi boo. Now you put them together, Kate, what have you got? Bibbidi bobbidi.
부산을 한 장의 사진에 담는 The time is now 8 o'clock.
It's morning.
And what a lovely morning.
Dynamic Busan.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Shelly.
What show is this? Hello.
Hello, baby.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, everybody.
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now 8 o'clock. This is news highlights. Japan to put South Korea back on preferential trade partner list. Japan announced a decision yesterday to reinstate South Korea on its whitelist of trusted trading partners about 4 years after the removal in a move to improve the bilateral economic relationship, Seoul's industry ministry said. Seoul's presidential office welcomed the move, saying it is a symbolic measure that shows the bilateral trust between the two nations in terms of trade has been fully restored following a series of summits between President Yoon Suk-yeol and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. With Seoul's return to Japan's whitelist next month, bilateral trade and cooperation between the two countries are expected to increase quickly, according to presidential spokesperson Lee Do-un. Legal age for buying liquor and tobacco to stay the same. The legal age for buying liquor or cigarettes will remain the same as before, even after the country's official age counting system switches this week to the international standard based on birth dates, the Family Ministry said yesterday. Under a law revision going into effect today, South Korea will no longer use the unique Korean age and instead will adopt the internationally recognized counting system in all judicial and administrative areas. Despite the upcoming change, however, the definition of minors not allowed to purchase liquor and tobacco will remain the same at below 19 under the Youth Protection Act, with the exception of those turning 19 in the same calendar year, according to the ministry. Minimum wage talks fall through on Labor Circle's absence. The talks on next year's minimum wage level fell through yesterday as the Labor Circle decided not to join the negotiations in protest over what it calls the oppression of laborers. The Labor Circle had demanded an almost 27% rise in next year's minimum wage at 12,210 won per hour, but the business side offered a freeze at 9,620 won. The minimum wage is made public by labor representatives on the 27-member Minimum Wage Commission. However, as the labor side skipped the 8th general meeting for the minimum wage level, it is unlikely to meet the June 29th deadline. Instant noodle and snack prices to tumble. Korean food makers Nongshim and Samyang Foods are lowering prices on instant noodle and snack products from July in a landmark bow to the government's pressure to contain living costs amid inflation. Nongshim announced yesterday the wholesale prices of 신라면 would be reduced by 4.5% and shrimp crackers by 6.9%. Shortly after, Samyang Foods announced yesterday it will gradually cut the prices on its range of 12 key products starting from July 1st. On average, customers can expect a decrease of 4.7% across the product lineup. The moves by both companies are seen as a direct response to the finance minister's call to address the issue of high prices of ramen, a representative of a daily food item. Other major ramen producers in the industry are also contemplating price reductions. IAEA to issue final report on Fukushima water release on July 4th. A local newspaper predicted yesterday that the report's release will coincide with the meeting between Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi at the Prime Minister's residence in Tokyo. The nuclear watchdog agency has been verifying the Fukushima water discharge plan, including a visit to the plant early this month to check on the construction of related facilities. With Japan regarding the IAEA's final report as the last step in its planned release, the discharge will proceed as scheduled this summer if the report does not present any particular concern. This was News Highlights. It's time for Issue Wa글와글.
Hello,
How are you?
Hello, pretty good.
Haley's back.
Yes, I am.
I was slightly preoccupied looking at all the messages popping up. We had Leon's little one, 한지우님, joining us. And our listeners are so embracing her, saying, what are they saying? 캐슬린 이모가 엄마한테 잘 얘기해 주신대. In terms of like, I'm like,
What are we telling her?
That, her mom did so well. Aww. And that, in terms of her commenting on this, 영어 시험 100점 못 받아도 혼 안 났으면 좋겠어. That's what we're such a family. We're a family. This is our family.
Yes,
I love our family.
And we're bringing in all of your family too.
Apparently, because some people were probably wondering, because she texted in, 엄마 저 듣고 있어. I'm like, I don't have a fourth child. I only have three. It's like, who is this child of mine?
Oh,
yes.
got it.
All right, so now let's talk about this issue. This is a hot one. A national team soccer player, footballer, is under controversy regarding his personal life. What's going on?
Right, so there's a legal case going on. It has turned legal because one netizen who claims that she is an ex-girlfriend of soccer player Hwang Hee-jo from FC Seoul claims that Hwang allegedly dated multiple women at once, gaslighted them, and allegedly took videos of them, saying that it's unclear whether some of the videos were consensual or not. And after the story broke, he and his management canceled his scheduled meet and greet with the fans on Monday. And his management, UJ Sports, said that all of these rumors are false, and they have passed the case on to the police, filing a lawsuit against this particular netizen. But it seems that there are videos with Hwang's management saying that when he was in Greece last year, his cell phone was stolen. And after that, he received these DMs on his social media that allegedly blackmailed him. And they think that his phone was hacked, leading to this case.
Oh, goodness. So let's go back to the videos because there are concerns of secondary victimization here.
Right. So there are multiple posts that have come up online saying that some people are selling these videos. That poses concerns for the victims, the women that are featured in the footage. Others also point out that there's a need to check to see whether these videos were filmed under consent. Because if one films videos of sexual nature without another person's consent, this is in violation of the sexual assault law, and one may be subject to under 7 years in prison or 50 million won in fines. Also, because these videos are circulating online, people offering them, it's now actually a crime to knowingly watch these videos. So after the nth room incident, the revised Law on Sexual Assault Punishment Act says that possession, purchase, storage, and even watching an illegally filmed content can lead to 3 years in prison or under 30 million won in fines. And of course, distribution, you get the same level of punishment as filming the content because, it's essentially doing the same crimes in terms of for the victims. So for distribution, you may be subject to under 7 years in prison or under 50 million won in fines.
This is a serious case, so regardless of, we don't know the facts yet, nonetheless, don't view, don't pass
his privacy
it on.
is his privacy. The rumors, they'll handle that in court. But as for the sexual victimization of the case, do what we can to cut it.
Stop it
here, yes.
Nip it in the bud, as I say. All right, next up. The court handed down a guilty verdict to a single mother protesting against her I guess, partner.
Right.
In terms of paying her child support, what is going on?
Right. So Incheon Regional Court found the woman in her 40s, the defendant, guilty of defamation and ordered her to pay 3 million won in fines. So she was charged for protesting against her ex-boyfriend, who's also the father of her child.
Okay.
So according to reports, the woman back in January and February of 2021, she went out to the streets of Incheon near his home, it seems. She held up a sign that had his photo and said that he needs to pay child support and that he was overdue 18.2 million won. She also posted this online, and she was also apparently charged with libel against her ex-boyfriend's now current wife. So she apparently dated this man for over 3 years, and they had a daughter, but he didn't pay her child support. And she claims that because the intent wasn't to defame and it was an act to receive her overdue child support, that she shouldn't be found guilty of defamation. However, the judge ruled that the comments and the protests, it degraded his and his wife's social reputation, thus satisfies the conditions of defamation. The defendant also showed a photo of the child's father around his home in her protest, and since he's not a public figure, the judge says that it's hard to see that his failure to pay child support falls in the realm of public interest.
I see. Well, regardless of how you feel about this case, this is not the first legal case surrounding defamation and unpaid child support.
Absolutely. So the most well-known case that we know about is the website Bad Fathers, which discloses the identity of not only fathers, but all parents who don't pay child support.
Yes.
The operator of the site was also found guilty of defamation back in 2021, although he had a stay of execution. But this also led to a positive side, the revision of the Child Support Act, and the Gender Equality and Family Ministry publishes the information of parents who don't pay child support. So it has gone to official realms. However, that's also a bit controversial because the ministry only publishes the name, birthday, occupation, and workplace of the parents who don't pay child support, not their picture. So that's been the point of contention with parents who are overdue on child support, so whose information is released. They say that disclosing their face would be defamation or libel. But those who request child support say that not disclosing their faces and pictures, that can lead to mistaken identities, and it basically eases the pressure on these individuals, thus further prompting the child support argument.
Yes. So that is very much a contentious issue. Let's move on to another one. We're going to move from defamation to defacement. So the Italian authorities are looking for this man. He apparently defaced a priceless monument in Rome, Italy.
And that would be the Colosseum.
Oh, goodness.
I know.
Tell me it isn't so.
There is a video.
Yes.
There's proof posted by the Italian culture minister. So this young man is using his keys to carve the letters into the walls of this 2,000-year-old amphitheater.
What did
it's the
carve?
Colosseum. He wrote Ivan plus Haley, eye roll, 23.
Haley, you
Not
Haley?
me, it's Hayley, seemingly his fiancé.
Okay, not your boyfriend.
Not mine, no, definitely not.
Okay.
The incident was filmed by another tourist to the Colosseum. This person who filmed it is an American tourist from Orange County who says that graffiti bugs him, especially at such a historical site.
Right.
So he was compelled to film the incident. He apparently, in the video, you can see him kind of yelling at this guy with some profanity, but the guy just smiles and continues to deface the Colosseum.
And you can see him smiling and
Right.
just looking back at the camera.
And the photo's blurred, but you can still see him.
Smiling with his
see-
teeth.
Yeah, the
Yes.
carelessness. So the tourist actually notified a Colosseum guard, but the guard said that there's nothing he could do about it because he didn't witness the act happening. But after this video was posted online, it went viral all the way up the government hierarchy to the culture minister, Gerano Sanguiliano, who tweeted on Monday that he considers it to be a very serious, unworthy, and a sign of great incivility that a tourist defaces one of the most famous places in the world, a historical site such as the Colosseum, to carve the name of his fiancée. And he hopes that whoever carried out this act will be identified and sanctioned according to their laws.
I don't like these stories. Tourists behaving badly.
Right.
Just please behave when you're in anywhere, but in other people's countries, right? What is the punishment for defacing the Colosseum? Is there punishment?
There is actually. Italy takes this very seriously, as they should. So damaging a historical and artistic landmark could result in 1 year in prison or a minimum fine of $2,400. According to a BBC, a Russian tourist back in 2014 was fined about $20,000 and given a 4-month prison sentence for just carving his initial K onto the wall of the Colosseum, which, as they should. Honestly,
they should.
This shows some respect. This is a 2,000-year-old structure built by the Roman Emperor Vespasian and completed by his son between 70 and 80 CE. So this predates all of us.
I know, and I was thinking, if that Russian tourist was fined $20,000 for one initial,
Simple
can you
math.
imagine Ivan?
And Haley.
And
that
Haley.
Haley has 2 E's. So yeah.
Touche, yes. Well, let's move on to another art-related story. And this time, it's all about an AI conductor.
Right. So we have AI artists, we have painters, photographers. Now, an AI conductor. So can a robot conduct an orchestra?
Ooh.
And they're having an experimental performance put on by the National Heorum Theater this Friday, and it's titled Absence, or the absence of the conductor. And you can see the robot that will be the maestro of maestra. I'm not sure of the gender.
Maestra. And by the way, that looks like a robot from, what's that movie, I, Robot, with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a humanoid. Right? So the performance will feature this robot, Ever 6, the country's Android robot conductor powered by AI. But this is not the first time worldwide. It is the first in South Korea. But in Japan, the robot Asimov, created by Honda, led the Detroit Orchestra back in 2008. Then Switzerland's Yumi conducted the Lucha Philharmonic in a performance with Andrea Bocelli.
Oh. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. Let's break it down. What are some of the pros and cons of having an AI conductor in the first place?
I mean, this is a machine. So
right.
It is just not living, but it is a metronome, in humanoid form. So it has perfect tempo.
Oh.
But having perfect tempo doesn't necessarily lead to artistry or musicality.
Right.
It's because there's no communication or connection with the orchestra. What's really interesting, there has been an opposite case with a human conductor. There's a conductor who's paralyzed, cannot move his arms, but he actually guides the orchestra with his facial expression and eyes, because that kind of connection is really what's more important.
Yes.
So that, and this is your kind of trivia of the day, is what's called the Moravec's paradox in artificial intelligence. And it says that it's actually easy to train computers to do things that we humans find difficult, like math and logic.
Okay.
However, on the contrary, it's hard to train AI and machines to do things that we find easy, like walking, image recognition, and that has important implications with this advent of AI in day-to-day life, language, translation, arts to music.
Okay.
So the head of the National Orchestra of Korea, who is involved in this performance, said that she actually hopes that this will be a performance where the absence of a human conductor will make the audience realize how much an orchestra actually needs that human conductor.
Well, I certainly hope that's what we can take away from this, because I don't know, we don't want to, create a void of just humans everywhere in terms of artistry.
I mean, in tying this with our theme, with our text topic of me yelling at clouds, me being a, 건데 at heart. I mean, AI technology, it's great, but there are things that still machines cannot replace in terms of needing a human touch, and this is certainly it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for going over all the hot issues. We'll check in with you tomorrow. Stay safe.
Have a great day.
Everybody, this was Haley with just one E. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Annie for our traffic and weather update.
Good morning again. It is currently 8 8:19 a.m. and here's your weather and traffic. So first, there is an accident between a truck and a car over on Gwangan Bridge just before the Daeyeon overpass, and they are handling on the shoulder lane, but definitely drive safe in the area. Roads are also busy on Dongseok overpass from Kamjeon interchange to the old Daegum tollgate. Also on Pansonglo from Yeonseo Elementary School to Yeonsan intersection, and likewise on Beonyeonglo from Seokdae interchange to Wondong interchange. Jumping over to the weather, there is a lull in the rain this morning. However, the rain will continue up until early afternoon. Current temperatures have not changed, averaging 20 degrees Celsius, with afternoon highs again looking to reach up to 27 degrees Celsius. UV levels are also high despite the rainy and cloudy conditions today, so definitely take proper preventative steps such as sunblock and make sure to pack your umbrellas today. That's all for now. Let's hand it back to Catherine.
Here's our next song, and this is Amoro Party by Kim Yeonja.
산다는데 다 그런 거지 누구나 빈손으로 와 소설 같은 한 편의 얘기들을 세상에 뿌리며 살지 자신에게 실망하지만 모든 걸 잘할 순 없어 오늘보다 더 나은 내일이면 돼 인생은 지금이야 Amor 인생이란 붓을 들고서 무엇을 그려야 할지 고민하고 방황하던 시간이 없다면 거짓말이지 말에 뭐에 쏜 화살처럼 사랑도 지나갔지만 그 추억들 누원이 부시면서도 슬펐던 행복이야 나이는 숫자 마음이 진짜 가슴이 뛰는 대로 가면 돼 이제는 더 이상 슬픔이 아니야 왔다 갈 한 번의 인생아 연애는 필수 결혼은 선택 가슴이 뛰는 대로 가면 돼 눈물은 이별의 거품일 뿐이야 다가올 사랑 두렵지 않아 Amor 말에 뭐에 쏜 화살처럼 사랑도 지나갔지만 그 추억들 눈이 부시면서도 슬펐던 행복이야 나이는 숫자 마음이 진짜 가슴이 뛰는 대로 가면 돼 이제는 더 이상 슬픔이 아니야 왔다 갈 한 번의 인생아 연애는 필수 결혼은 선택 가슴이 뛰는 대로 가면 돼 눈물은 이별의 거품일 뿐이야 다가올 사랑 두렵지 않아 Amor Amor Amor
All right, listeners, it's time for a text topic one last time. In terms of today, we're talking about the fact that we are, maybe some of us, are turning 1 year younger. We're converting to the international aid system. Actually, I'll be honest, I never converted to the Korean aid system because I was so used to the international aid, having spent the majority of my life in California. And then when I came here, I was just like, why is everybody telling me I'm a year older than I actually am? However, the text topic is this: what is something you want to tell younger people to do while they're young? So yes, 오늘은 우리 모두 한 살씩 어려진 것을 기념해서 나보다 어린 사람에게 젊었을 때는 꼭 이거는 꼭 해라 라고 조언을 해주고 싶은 이야기 있으면 전해주세요. So let me know what you're thinking in terms of what young people should be doing. We have 오겹살 조아님. Simple. Carpe diem. Ooh, that's a good one, right? And in terms of what other people are texting in, lots of, enjoy traveling. I think that's a common one that I'm seeing on the board as well. And for our listener who says, good morning, why is the studio empty? It was not empty. I had to take a little, mini emergency break. So I'm back. Don't worry. We're good to go. And I'll be back with the first of two special interviews in a moment. Listeners, you may have been following what's been happening in terms of this Wagner group, this so-called mutiny. It seemed to have been short-lived. It happened over the weekend. And we've been hearing a lot about Yevgeny Prigozhin, that he has agreed to go on some sort of exile to Belarus as a result. But we need to find out the logistics of what really happened and the ramifications of this revolt or mutiny. We'll find out what we should call it. We have invited back to the airways Professor Aurel Braun, who's a professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto and also an associate at the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies at Harvard. Let's welcome him back. Hi, welcome back, Professor. Yes, so if you could give us an overview, Professor, of what exactly happened. Do we even call it a mutiny? Was it a revolt or a rebellion? What do we even call it? What happened?
I think it is a mutiny. And on the weekend, Yevgeny Primakov, who is the leader of the Wagner group, this is a group of mercenaries, about 25,000, who were among the most effective troops within the Russian military spectrum. They were the ones who took over Bakhmut. He defied military orders to sign a contract, and instead he moved from Ukraine into Russia proper and began to march towards Moscow. It was an armed insurrection. He encountered relatively little resistance. There were some incidents, however. Some of the Russian Air Force fired on Wagner forces, and about a dozen pilots were killed, 6 helicopters shot down. And it was a major crisis because he not only took over the southern headquarters of the military in the large city of Rostov-on-Don, and he did that without any resistance by the Russian military, but his forces marched more than 700 kilometers and came within 200 kilometers of Moscow.
Yes, and so this was a major move by Prigozhin, and it does seem that the U.S. intelligence authorities, that they may have known that this was to come, that this was at least in the works, that maybe Prigozhin or Wagner was planning this. Do we have definitive information on that?
We have had some news reports that American intelligence sources knew about this. The American administration has referred to this largely indirectly, saying that they did not want to appear to be interfering in Russian domestic affairs. They certainly did not want to give Mr. Putin any kind of excuse to say that this was the collective West, again, acting against Russia and trying to dismantle his government. But Mr. Putin will do that anyway. And of course, Mr. Putin reacted in an uncharacteristic fashion to this. First, he went on the air for only 5 minutes This is not how he normally conducts his television appearances. It was extraordinarily brief, and called this a betrayal. He called it a stab in the back. He called this action treason. Now, given the magnitude of this, and given what we know that how close these columns came to Moscow, it is astonishing that 7 hours later, he agreed to a compromise solution, which meant that Mr. Prigozhin and the Wagner Group forces would receive amnesty. They would have charges dropped against them, and indeed those charges have been dropped.
Yes.
And when we look at how decisions are made by the Kremlin, this is totally uncharacteristic, and it's going to have very long-lasting effect.
Yes. So can we talk about that turnaround, Professor? Because what does that signal in terms of Putin and maybe his power right now over not just the military forces, but his power within Russia? Do you think that he's been weakened by this?
He is trying to put the best face on it, to claim that he has prevailed, that he just wanted to prevent the shedding of Russian blood, and that's why there was this kind of compromise. But this is not how he has operated in the past. And given the magnitude of the accusations, it is really odd that he would do this. And let's also understand that Prigozhin was viewed as a hero inside Russia. He was allowed to say the kind of things that others would go to jail for, criticizing the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Staff. And those were his demands, that they should be dismissed. And when he engaged this mutiny, he said some very important things. One, that this was not a special military operation, but that this was an actual war. Two, that this was not necessary, that Ukraine presented no threat. And three, that the military action was utterly incompetent, and thousands of Russian lives were lost because of this incompetence, and families would never forgive that leadership. Now, having laid this out, in essence, even though he claimed that this was not against Mr. Putin personally, he challenged the very legitimacy of this whole enterprise in Ukraine. And because he was also someone who for so long had been viewed as a hero, this means that Mr. Putin never knows who might turn on him suddenly and unpredictably.
Well, we just got some news regarding Prigozhin's whereabouts, because obviously people were trying to figure out where is he? Where in the world is Prigozhin? Apparently he's popped up. Is he in Belarus? That's what the reports seem to indicate.
The dictator of Belarus, who really is the vassal of Vladimir Putin's, who claimed he mediated this compromise agreement, announced that Mr. Prigozhin had arrived in Belarus, that he would be there in exile. We don't know how long he would be allowed to stay there. We don't know what his exact status would be. But at the moment, he's supposed to be safe. And this is, again, very uncharacteristic of the kind of regime that Mr. Putin runs. And we have to understand the decision-making process. This is not an ordinary government. There are no institutional safeguards. There's no party. It is all Mr. Putin. So when I look at how this government makes decisions, we can't really be helped by social sciences or looking at Machiavelli or looking at Clausewitz. The closest thing to look at the Sopranos on television and The Godfather, because this is where he exercises absolute power. But in this kind of situation, that leader must eliminate all opponents. He cannot allow opponents to go free. And yet, so far, at least Mr. Prigozhin has gone free. This is a tremendous sign of weakness, regardless of how Mr. Putin is trying to spin it. And he is trying to spin it mightily now.
Right. For a final wrap-up question today, Professor, though, do you think that it's too early to say this might be the beginning of the very long end of this conflict, or even the end of the power that we know so well, Putin being, I guess, for lack of a better word, a dictator at this point of Russia? Do you think that this might be the beginning of a very long end, or it's just too early to say?
we cannot put a time on it because the very nature of these kind of dictatorships is that they are unpredictable. They can look solid, stable, and all of a sudden they don't look that solid and stable. And we saw now how quickly things could change. But this is very bad news for Mr. Putin, no matter what he says, no matter what he does now.
Yes.
And I think any countries that have dealings with Putin, any allies, really should do their due diligence that they're looking at someone who has been very significantly weakened and that there could be sudden developments that would bring about major changes or turmoil.
Well, of course, this is such a fascinating facet to this long story, this war in Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Everybody, once again, this was our first of two interviews. This was Professor Aurel Braun, and I'll be back in just a moment with our second interview. I believe I'll be back in a moment.
You're now listening to the world's most reliable morning show, Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Text in to BEFM #9050 for 101. You can also reach us for free through our YouTube live stream or on Kakao Talk. Begin your morning with Catherine, and don't forget to reboot your day after lunch. Stay tuned for Steve Hatherley Reboot every day from 2 to 4 p.m.
All right, and now we are ready for our second special interview this morning. So you may have heard about TikTok being banned in various methods and ways in the United States and some certain European countries as well. Well, apparently this time around, TikTok has sued to block the U.S. state of Montana from banning residents from accessing its social media platform. And this lawsuit comes after Montana became the first U.S. state to pass a sweeping ban on the Chinese-owned video sharing platform. So we have invited to the airwaves Professor Daniel Lyons, Professor and Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Boston College Law School. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So first of all, can we talk about the Montana legislature voting to ban TikTok within the state? What was this all about?
Yeah, so Montana justified its ban on two primary grounds. First, it was focused on the failure by TikTok to remove content that promotes dangerous conduct by minors, things like climbing stacks of milk crates or cooking chicken in NyQuil, right? Things that have kind of captured the zeitgeist here in the United States. Secondly, I think the primary driver is the app collects data on its users, including public officials and journalists. And there's a concern that that data might be shared with the Chinese government and then used for intelligence purposes.
Yes. Go on, Professor.
The critics have also been concerned that China might use the app to spread propaganda or disinformation.
Yes. And so in terms of, authorities, not just in Montana, but obviously worldwide, there have been many concerns that have been raised regarding the second facet of what you were talking about TikTok collecting this data from its users and then potentially sharing that with the Chinese government. In your opinion, how significant are these concerns? Are they well-founded?
Yeah, so the answer is we don't know, in part because the governments involved, I think for good reason, aren't publicizing the evidence that they have about whether TikTok is a conjectural or a real threat. We do have some anecdotal evidence that China has abused access to the platform. Last year, there was a Chinese team that used TikTok location data on American journalists in order to identify the sources of certain press leaks. TikTok has sworn that those issues have been resolved, at least with regard to American data. The U.S. government remains unconvinced, but it hasn't really explained why. Now, that said, there's 150 million TikTok users in the States alone. It's a lot of data, and the internet runs on monetization of personal data, so it has some value.
Well, in terms of this ban, when is it going to take effect? And are there specific restrictions, or does it just mean there's an outright ban on TikTok?
Yeah, it's unusually structured. So the Montana ban takes effect on January 1st, 2024. And on its terms, it prevents TikTok from operating within the territory of Montana, and it prohibits mobile app stores from making TikTok available for download. So violators would face a fine of $10,000 a day, but it's a defense if the violator could not reasonably have known that the violation took place in Montana. So what does it really mean? It means that the act regulates TikTok and it regulates Google and Apple, but it explicitly does not regulate the users of TikTok. And also knowing that the ban won't take effect if TikTok is sold to a non-Chinese company before the end of the year.
I see. So that's actually really interesting what you said right now, Professor, about the users. So does that mean that the users, that if they've already downloaded it, that they can still use it? Or does it mean that it will be disabled in terms of the technical aspects? Will TikTok be disabled in the state of Montana?
No, you're exactly right, that because users are excluded from the app, the legislation doesn't prevent any existing users from using TikTok. It does create cybersecurity risks for those users because they can't download new updates that would patch security holes or anything like that. It also doesn't prevent Montana residents from downloading the TikTok app from other sources, right? So side loading, or using a jailbroken iPhone to get TikTok from a non-app store source. And it also doesn't stop anybody from using TikTok's browser interface or using a VPN in order to mask the fact that they're in Montana at the time they're using it. So there's a lot of technical difficulties with trying to implement this ban if the state gets serious about it.
Right. And to get to the crux of this interview, so TikTok has now sued the state of Montana. So is this like a countersuit, or what's happening right now?
Yeah, so TikTok and a group of TikTok users have challenged the state, asserting that the ban violates the First Amendment, right? So it's what we would call a content-neutral restriction on speech. So in order to be constitutional, the government has to meet a two-part test under the First Amendment. First, it has to show that the TikTok ban furthers an important governmental interest that's not related to speech. And secondly, that the ban doesn't interfere with significantly more speech than necessary to achieve that interest. And I think the Montana government faces an uphill battle on both of those grounds.
So technically speaking, if TikTok were to win this lawsuit, this ban could then be, I guess, canceled, or that it would be overturned?
Yeah, the court would enjoin the state legislation as unconstitutional and therefore refuse to enforce it. It would be as if the legislation never existed.
I see. For a final wrap-up question, do you think that this lawsuit, the TikTok specifically suing the state of Montana, that this might dissuade other states from pushing these bans through, or do you think it's going to be full force ahead with these types of legislations against TikTok?
I think part of it depends on how fast the court resolves the challenge. I do expect Montana to lose because a complete ban chills far more speech than necessary to achieve any national security concern. Like millions of sea shanties and dance videos that have no intelligence purpose whatsoever. That said, I think what you'll see after that case is efforts to try to regulate TikTok in more narrow ways. So things like a ban on TikTok on government devices, or efforts to force TikTok to host American data on American servers, or the Biden administration has been pushing significantly for for TikTok to be divested from Chinese ownership and sold to an American company. I would expect those types of initiatives to gain more traction once the ban is struck down.
I see. Thank you so much for your time and expertise on this matter. Thank you, Professor.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Everybody, this was Professor Daniel Lyons. Time for Talkity Talk. We have Michael Garrett in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, real quick, is it still raining?
It wasn't when I came in. No, it stopped.
Not in Centum. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. What do you have for us?
So today, Catherine, the story that has engrossed the world over the past week is the Titan submersible. Sad story that suffered a catastrophic implosion that killed its pilot and his 4 passengers near the Titanic shipwreck. Now, the pilot was also the chief executive of the company. It was the one who built the uncertified submersible. His name was Stockton Rush. So here, let's listen to him describing his passion for exploring the ocean.
The ocean is a scary spot. And because of that, I think is one of the big things. And what I wanted to do with the business was just move the needle, get people excited about the ocean, explore the ocean, and discover what was out there.
Yeah, so you heard there Stockton Rush say that he wanted to, quote, move the needle in getting people interested in deep sea exploration. This is something that he's dedicated, or he had dedicated his life to. To move the needle is to have a noticeable effect.
Yes.
To make a change that is meaningful and also measurable, and that's what the needle would be, is some kind of measurement of that change. So if Rush was trying to get people interested in deep ocean exploration, something that would not move the needle might be like a little speech given at a university to a small audience. But he thought that moving the needle meant, like, starting this business and offering submarine trips down to the Titanic wreck that were tourist opportunities for people. And that would generate a lot of publicity and also interest around the world.
Yes, moving that needle. Well, what exactly went wrong during this dive when this submersible imploded?
Yeah, maritime researchers, they had called an implosion the worst possible outcome of all the scenarios envisioned during the desperate round-the-clock search to find the missing vessel. But experts had actually cautioned that under intense pressure at extreme depths, the Titan's hull could implode. So there were warnings beforehand.
Yes.
It wasn't really actually a surprise to everyone that this happened, unfortunately. And that, of course, would result in instant death for anyone aboard.
Sure.
And while Stockton Rush's company, it really touted the Titan's kind of roomier, cylinder-shaped cabin. If you look at these really deep sea submersibles, they're normally completely round and spherical.
Right.
And the reason is that you're trying to get the water pressure in as like over the largest surface area as evenly as possible.
Right.
But when you lengthen it out like a cylinder, that makes the pressure uneven and it gives you kind of weak spots in it. The other thing was that the Titan was made out of carbon fiber.
Yes.
And then normally that would be titanium in a lot of the other submersibles. So that's why people are saying they contacted him ahead of time by email sometimes, and they said, look, this design it's not safe. Now, James Cameron, the director of the movie Titanic and, Avatar these days, that's what everybody's talking about. But he's gone on many, many deep sea expeditions, and he's actually claimed to have gone 3 times deeper than the Titanic wreck in a submersible himself. So he's a bit of an expert in this. And he went on interviews recently. I think he's kind of upset that this is putting a dark cloud over deep sea exploration.
Right.
Because he's also very passionate about that, and he wants people to continue to do it. But in this interview, he compared the Titan submersible to the Titanic itself. It was an interesting comparison, so let's take a listen to that.
But to me, the big irony is that the Titanic sank because of bad seamanship. The captain was warned, and he took a decision to go full speed into a known ice field that he had Marconigram, telegrams in his pocket, warning about the ice ahead. And on a moonless night where they couldn't see anything, they just steamed full speed ahead. And I kind of feel that that's what happened here. I feel that this was such a preventable tragedy. We've never had a tragedy like this in the entire history of deep submergence, deep diving.
Yes.
Yeah, so you could hear there that James Cameron's comments, he said that not everyone is just giving condolences after the death of Stockton Rush, because I think many people are blaming him for the deaths of the 4 passengers, because he's the one who designed this and he built this, and he's the one who, sold these tickets to go on this adventure. So Cameron said Rush went full steam ahead into danger.
Full steam ahead.
Yeah, full steam ahead. Now that phrase, it means to do something with all of your effort or your energy, but without any caution. So you don't have to use full steam ahead just for vehicles.
Right.
You can use them in a general way too. Like let's say you had a work project and you could say, are we going full steam ahead on this or are we not? And that just means, are we committing to this and doing everything we can to succeed, or are we not doing that?
Right. And, James Cameron said that these deaths were preventable because there are safer submersibles that have been designed for, deep, ocean exploration. And I think it makes it so much more tragic. And at the top of the segment, you even said that this was an uncertified submersible.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And there were many people who said, at least let's just get this certified. Let some experts look at this and then they can tell you. And it was kind of like, oh, you're trying to stop my business, this kind of feeling.
Very defensive. Yes.
Right. So many actually have focused now their sympathies on 19-year-old Suleiman of the prominent Pakistani Dawood family, one of the 4 passengers who died. Suleiman died on the Titan with his father, Shahzada, and here is his mother, Christine, who survived. She was on the boat that brought the submersible out there into the ocean when it came back that there was no communication anymore. So she was right there when this happened. And here she is after the implosion was confirmed.
So it was supposed to be Shahzada and I going down. But then I stepped back and gave the space to Suleiman because he really wanted to go. We just hugged and joked, actually, because Shahzada was so excited to go down. He was like a little child. I missed him.
Sad. Yes.
That could have been her.
Yeah, right. That's what she was saying, is that originally the 2 tickets were supposed to be for Shahzada and Christine.
Yes.
And then she gave her ticket to Suleiman, and so he was the one who went down, a 19-year-old. And actually, there was, after the implosion news came out, there was also an interview done by the sister of Shahzada, Azme Dawood, and she claimed to NBC News that her nephew Suleiman had actually sent a letter where he said that he was actually terrified to go down in the submersible, but he wasn't going to tell his father that he was because it was Father's Day, and he wanted to be there with his father for this thing. And so that interview also just crushed everybody because they're saying he didn't even really want to go there. There was also the detail of he brought a Rubik's Cube down with him because he wanted to break the record of doing the Rubik's Cube down in the submersible, which just broke everybody's hearts because it just makes him such a human teenager that you can really identify with.
Right.
So in any case, it does seem that we are expanding the frontiers of tourism because the fact that you can buy a ticket just to go down in this thing and see the Titanic wreck. We're also doing this for space. Have you heard about this? So Sir Richard Branson's space tourism company plans to conduct its first fully commercial flight. It's called Spaceship Two. It's a suborbital space plane, which means that you're not flying directly up out into space. You're flying up to the atmosphere, like the upper atmosphere.
The edge.
Yeah, and you're still in the atmosphere, kind of on the edge of space right there. But when you look out the windows, you are seeing space.
Right.
And you look down and you see the Earth with the blue sky down below. But anyway, so this is having its first flight tomorrow.
And the thing is, these seats, not cheap.
No, they are not. How much do you think they cost to get on this plane and go to space?
I heard for the submersible, for the Titan, it was like, what, $250,000 per seat?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
That's right.
But I heard for tomorrow, isn't this even more expensive?
It is. So this one, $450,000 per. And then you say, wow, who has the ability to buy a ticket on that little flight right there? What you're getting, basically, you're going to go up and you're going to have a little while of weightlessness.
Yes.
And you're going to look out the window and see space and look down on the Earth. 800 tickets already sold at $450,000 a pop.
Lots of wealthy people.
Yeah, there are.
You and I are not on that list. Are you?
No,
oh, you might be.
Those,
I don't know.
Hey, don't assume.
Yeah, you might be.
Yeah, 2
Maybe
tickets.
You applied.
Yeah, myself and my wife, we're going next Tuesday. I'll be up there. But yeah, so this is. It just seems like what we can actually pay to do these days is getting so broad, and these things that we would consider like there's no way that you could just pay to go up in space. Now we can. And what's next? Are we going to have little tourism trips to the moon? You're going to
I
drop
don't know.
down?
I was terrified going ziplining like 2 summers ago, and that was an adventure for me.
Yeah.
And even that, I was just like, oh, should I pay this much for the ziplining? Is it worth it?
Right.
Is it safe? There's no safety net. I mean, how many cables are holding me up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to sign lots of waivers too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for this, I can't imagine. There must be like a booklet of waivers.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, you need the lawyers to draw you up something just absolutely, steal on this one. So, yeah, I guess people, they are interested in these really kind of seemingly dangerous things. And then you look at the actual plane itself, it does look very cool. And so you have some confidence in it.
Extreme exploration, right?
Yeah,
is what we're going to call it.
That's the tourism trend right now for sure, Catherine.
Well, thanks for bringing light to some of the details, the minute details of what happened. And we'll definitely check in with you next week for Talkity Talk. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's time to wrap things up for this very wet Wednesday. Once again, I implore all of you out there, please stay safe out there. I know the rain is on and off, but we're going to this is our rainy season. So I hope you have a wonderful hump day. Final song is this, 수요일엔 빨간 장미를 by 성시경. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
수요일에는 빨간 장미를 그녀에게 안겨주고파 흰 옷을 입은 천사와 같이 아름다운 그녀에게 주고 싶네 슬퍼 보이는 오늘 밤에는 아름다운 꿈을 주고파 깊은 밤에도 잠 못 이루던 내 마음은 그녀에게 주고 싶네 한 송이는 어떨까 왠지 외로워 보이겠지 한 다발은 어떨까 왠지 무거워 보일 거야 시린 그대 눈물 씻어주고픈 수요일엔 빨간 장미를 슬픈 영화에서처럼